triggered a wave of violence across the country, including widespread riots, bombings, and an on-air invasion of a television station by armed men during a live broadcast. Authorities say he was found hiding in a bunker that he had built beneath a home on the country's west coast. Ecuador's president says the country has requested his extradition to the U.S., where he faces drug and weapons charges. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. We'll cover more stories right after this break.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Just moments ago, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that the FBI is investigating who leaked the U.S. assessment of the strikes on Iran and emphasized there's no indication any enriched uranium was removed from the Iranian sites. At the Pentagon today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth praised U.S. airstrikes in Iran, calling them historic, as General Dan Kane reveals a 15-year mission to stop a nuclear threat. The White House is set to host a, quote, big, beautiful event as the president pushes his domestic policy bill through Congress. The Senate could vote on the plan this week. We have the latest. The Supreme Court today sided with the South Carolina law that blocks Planned Parenthood from accepting Medicaid for abortions. And we speak to a national security expert about the multiple ongoing investigations into illegal Chinese marijuana growers in Maine. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is running for re-election as an independent. He says there is more work to do in bringing down crime.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held a briefing just moments ago addressing a series of developments. She confirmed the FBI is now investigating who leaked a classified assessment on U.S. strikes in Iran. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good afternoon. What is the latest from the press briefing this afternoon?
Good afternoon to you as well, Dawn. So the White House, during a press briefing this afternoon, doubled down on the assessment that there's no evidence that Iran was able to move any of its enriched uranium out of its nuclear sites before the U.S. struck the sites late Saturday in the past weekend using bunker buster bombs, which the administration says have completely destroyed Iran's nuclear sites. And it comes after President Trump this morning said that, quote, that the cars and small trucks at the site were those of concrete workers trying to cover up the top of the shafts, adding that nothing was taken out of the facility, would take too long, too dangerous, and very, very heavy and hard to move. Here's the White House doubling down on that assessment. Watch.
United States and our intelligence agencies and Director Ratcliffe and the president's entire national security team were obviously watching these sites very closely in the weeks and the days leading up to the attack on Saturday. And there was no indication to the United States that any of that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strike.
And thus, the White House says the administration was closely monitoring the sites in the days leading up to the attack. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said this morning that in the days leading up to the U.S. strikes, they did see that Iran was trying to cover the main shafts of the nuclear facilities with concrete. Meanwhile, the White House today also criticized the leak to the media about a preliminary report assessing the damage caused by the bomb, saying that it didn't completely destroy the sites, adding that that report was preliminary and incomplete and also concluded with low confidence. The White House today called this leak an example of people who dislike President Trump inside the government, especially, for example, on the Capitol Hill or in the intel community that intentionally leak these information tidbits to reporters to manipulate narratives. And the White House also gave the example of a CNN reporter who first reported on this leaked report, citing examples of past reporting in past years. For example, in 2020, the White House says the reporter reported that Hunter Biden laptop story was a part of Russian disinformation campaign. And in 2020, she also reported that the lab leak theory of the COVID origin was refuted by intel agency. The White House says that all these reporting turns out to be false. Here's the White House today criticizing such journalism. Watch.
This is a reporter who has been unfortunately used by people who dislike Donald Trump in this government to push fake and false narratives. And that's not what reporting is. Journalism is trying to find the facts and the truth.
And as the White House confirms that the FBI is investigating who caused the leak this time to the media, the White House says that such persons should be held accountable for this criminal behavior. Back to you.
And Iris, the president is holding what the White House is calling a big, beautiful event this afternoon. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So the White House says that the president is holding an event this afternoon at 4 p.m. trying to rally support for senators to pass this big, beautiful bill. We know that earlier this week, President Trump called on these senators to pass the bill this week and get the bill to his desk as soon as possible. He says that, well, do whatever you need, lock yourself in a room if needed, and must stay here to pass the bill without going on vacation. And the White House says today that the president this afternoon will be joined by everyday Americans in showing why the bill needs to be passed. To raise the example, for example, of tipped delivery drivers, law enforcement officers, and border patrol agents. Tom Homan, the border czar, will also be speaking at this afternoon's event. Remember, this big, beautiful bill, as the president calls it, includes provisions to boost spending for border security, as well as to renew the 2017 tax cuts first enacted by President Trump that are expiring at the end of this year. The White House says that the bill will deliver the biggest tax cuts for everyday Americans, adding that that will put more money into hardworking Americans' pockets. But of course, we know that it remains to be seen, though, if Republicans on the Senate side can actually achieve their goal of passing this bill and basically getting this to the president's desk by July 4th, as there have been some challenges in recent days. Back to you.
All right, Iris, thank you very much. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held a press conference this morning at the Pentagon. Joint Chiefs of Chairman General Dan Kane also spoke. The event addressed media coverage of recent U.S. airstrikes in Iran and recognized the efforts of American pilots involved in the mission.
Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history, and it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. You, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible.
Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane praised the services of the defenders of U.S. base in Qatar, which was attacked by Iran. He then walked the press through the 15-year history behind the U.S. attack on the Fordow nuclear facility in Iran.
We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. These awesome humans, along with their Qatari brothers and sisters in arms, stood between a salvo of Iranian missiles and the safety of Al Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. And he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordow, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target.
Kane also discussed the aftermath of the strikes on Fordow. Kane said the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. He added that they were released at the correct speed and parameters. Kane said the weapons all guided to their intended targets. The Air Force general said that the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said today he was unaware of any intelligence suggesting Iran had moved any of its highly enriched uranium to shield it from U.S. strikes. After the strikes, some experts cautioned that Iran could have moved a stockpile of near weapons-grade enriched uranium out of Fordow before the strike. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirms there are multiple ongoing investigations into illegal Chinese marijuana growers in Maine. Here is what she said during a congressional budget hearing on Wednesday.
Regarding the Chinese marijuana growers, one of the first things I did was meet with Director Patel about that. I met with DEA about that and ATF about that because it all goes together. As we discussed, we are looking at that closely, and we will continue to fight that and research that. And that was something else that I learned about in Maine from my very first meeting with you, but we have had multiple discussions about it, and there are active, ongoing investigations regarding that issue.
And joining us now to discuss is Jimmy Quinn, National Security Correspondent of National Review. So, Jimmy, thank you very much for joining us. As you heard, Pam Bondi confirmed there are multiple ongoing investigations into illegal Chinese marijuana growers in Maine. So these are active investigations. So, Jimmy, what do we know so far about this growing operation?
So there are a couple of ways to look at it. At the most basic level, it's an illegal drug operation, and for that reason, it should be prosecuted and people should be brought to justice. There are concerns about human trafficking, about the labor conditions in these grow houses, where people who illegally came to the United States are being put to work in potentially unsafe and unsanitary conditions. It's a blight on local communities and the neighborhoods in which these operations have been exposed so far. The second way to look at it is the nexus with the Chinese Communist Party. These illegal grow operations are part of transnational Chinese criminal organizations that are in an alliance with Beijing. And Beijing basically turns a blind eye to these groups' overseas operations, and it leverages them to conduct all sorts of criminal activities in the West and in other countries. This sort of alliance between transnational crime and the Chinese regime has been well established, and it's something that's been documented by a range of outlets across the ideological spectrum, including ProPublica, the Daily Caller, and the Maine Wire, obviously in Maine. So it's a massive problem on multiple levels, and it's really significant that the AG is confronting this.
And Jimmy, if you could, can you go into more detail about the negative impacts this is actually having on real people?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you have a grow farm in a community that's siphoning off resources and electricity and bringing people illegally to the United States where they're working in these horrific conditions, that's obviously going to be a drag on towns in Maine and Oklahoma and other states where these operations have been found. But the other problem is that many of these transnational criminal organizations actually have been linked by those same media outlets I mentioned earlier to the CCP's political influence networks, to what is called the United Front, which is the sort of lifeblood of the party's influence within China and also overseas. And in fact, there have been ties between these United Front organizations involved in the marijuana grow operations and the illegal Chinese police station in New York. That was a big report, I believe, last year by ProPublica. Chinese diplomats have actually gone out, reportedly, to visit these locations. So China's embassy in the United States is, at least aware of this and probably involved in ways that the public isn't, aware yet. The extent of these activities and the direct links to the Chinese party state is something that we're going to learn a lot more about as the FBI and the DOJ continues to investigate.
And in your view, what is the level of damage being done right now? I mean, should people be worried?
Absolutely. And I mean, the other thing is that many of these transnational criminal organizations are allegedly involved in fentanyl trafficking. So they're ravaging communities with the help of the Chinese government. This is the same regime in Beijing that basically provided export subsidies, according to a congressional committee investigation, for chemical companies that manufacture fentanyl precursors. So the Chinese government was subsidizing and incentivizing the export of these chemicals that people use to create drugs that have killed countless tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans. These illegal grow operations are part of the financing and money laundering networks that sustain that sort of drug trafficking.
Okay, so many points to talk through, but since we're on the topic of fentanyl, maybe I'll ask you, China says it has taken a series of actions in the past week to try to curb fentanyl production. Beijing here trying to placate the U.S., perhaps after facing a tariff back and forth over the issue. What are your thoughts on that? How trustworthy is this news of the actions from Beijing?
I think when it comes to what the Chinese Communist Party is doing, the idea should be to distrust anything they say and to take preventive measures to combat that sort of activity, even if they say that they're going to stop exporting these precursors. Fundamentally, the Chinese don't believe that they have any obligation to prevent the export of these chemicals that have killed so many countless Americans. The Chinese government is directly responsible for these deaths. And they've played this game before where they've told the U.S. government that they're going to crack down on the export of fentanyl, on the export of the precursor chemicals, and it's continued. So it's basically like Groundhog Day. And each time they do this, subsequently, we learn about a new policy to facilitate the export of fentanyl to the United States. So it's not even distrust but verify. It's distrust and build a regime to defend against these malign actions. And I think that's what the Trump administration has started to do by bringing these law enforcement actions and criminal investigations, and also closing the border and making sure that the precursor chemicals that are shipped to Mexico and transformed into fentanyl pills and then shipped across the border are not able to come up here anymore.
Okay, I'll just ask you one more thing because we're running out of time here. You mentioned the term United Front earlier. What is the ultimate goal of that, and what is the solution?
So the goal of the CCP's United Front is to basically create a network, both in China and wherever the Chinese Communist Party wants to exert its authority. So anywhere on earth, where people who aren't part of the party are actively doing its bidding and are involved in a sort of fake civil society controlled by Beijing, where Beijing's rules are the standard. Right. And that's what we saw with this Chinese police station case 2 years ago, where the party was trying to exert its version of the law overseas. And it was actively hunting dissidents through this secret outpost in New York. And that was connected to the United Front. It was a community group that ran it that had ties to United Front organizations back in China. And very interestingly, this ProPublica report that I referenced earlier tied the illegal Chinese police outpost to the illegal grow operations in Oklahoma. So it's this very nebulous network of different actors involved in various activities, but it's a well-oiled political machine that emanates from Beijing and entraps anyone caught in its web.
Well, okay, Jimmy, great talking to you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, the Supreme Court today sided with the South Carolina law that blocks Planned Parenthood from accepting Medicaid for abortions. That and more when we return.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
On Capitol Hill, several sticking points remain over Republicans' big budget bill. President Trump holding an event at the White House later today in a last-minute effort to shore up support ahead of a long weekend of negotiation on the Hill. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
The main sticking points in this big budget bill are over state and local tax deductions, Medicaid reform, and how quickly and aggressively to roll back energy tax credits. The SALT cap limits how much people can deduct from their federal taxes for state and local taxes already paid. Some lawmakers from high-tax states want to raise the cap from $10,000 to $40,000. They're essentially trying to find a number that members from those high-tax states like New York and California can accept. But remember, at the same time, President Trump didn't even want SALT to be a part of this reconciliation bill. There are several who are opposed to it because they say it's a tax giveaway to governors who they say aren't running their states well. Then you have senators who remain concerned over the national debt. Here's one of them.
I'm fiscally conservative no matter who is president, and I just can't support something that makes the deficit worse.
Senator Ron Johnson shares his concerns, though he says he's met with White House officials and that they're helping him move closer to a yes. Several Republicans are also concerned about what Medicaid cuts mean for rural hospitals. That's a concern shared among Democrats. Listen to this consensus between two unlikely allies, a staunch conservative Josh Hawley, as well as a socialist Democrat Bernie Sanders.
Hospitals that are already struggling would be forced to shut down.
We can't close rural hospitals. That's my message.
One idea to address these concerns is to set up a relief fund for rural hospitals to help offset any losses from Medicaid cuts. Senator Hawley said this is a step in the right direction, but other Republicans like Susan Collins of Maine say it's not enough. There's also dispute about how to handle repealing Biden's grain energy tax credits. Both the House and the Senate want to phase them out, but it's a matter of how fast to do it. Now, amid of all this turbulence and these ongoing negotiations, leaders are also expressing optimism that they'll be able to meet that self-imposed life-worth deadline.
We're moving that along. I've talked to a countless number of members and senators today, and we're working through the final details, and I'm convinced we'll get it to the point where everybody can be satisfied with it, and we'll get it done.
But I think we produced a bill working with the House, working with the White House, that will get the requisite number of Republican senators to vote for it so that we can pass it.
Now, if all of this goes smoothly and there aren't any hiccups in the House once they get the bill back, it's possible they will be able to meet that July 4th deadline. If, however, the House gets it back and there's some unsatisfied members who refuse to vote unless their preferences are met, then we could be looking at a delay on the bill or late-night negotiations in a rush to get it done. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The Commerce Department reports that the U.S. economy shrank 0.5% annually from January through March. The department previously estimated the economy shrank 0.2% in the first quarter. The January-March drop in gross domestic product marked the first economic contraction in 3 years. Imports grew nearly 38%, the fastest since 2020. Consumer spending also slowed sharply, expanding just 0.5%. That's down from the 4% in the fourth quarter of 2024. Federal government spending fell at least a 4.6% annual pace, the biggest drop since 2022. A first peek at second quarter GDP growth is expected July 30th. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's term ends in May of next year. President Trump says he is considering several people to lead the central bank. The president yesterday remarked on his dissatisfaction with Powell, mentioning that he has 3 or 4 people he's considering for the next chair. Some top contenders reportedly include Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, current Fed Governor Christopher Waller, and National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Trump has routinely criticized Powell for not cutting interest rates. Earlier this year, Powell said the Fed is not in a hurry to lower rates. Powell argued that increases in tariffs this year could push up prices and weigh on economic activity. The Supreme Court today rejected challenges by Planned Parenthood to a South Carolina law that prevents them from receiving Medicaid funding for abortions. 2 Planned Parenthoods and a patient sued the state of South Carolina. A South Carolina law terminated Planned Parenthood's enrollment agreements to provide family planning services under Medicaid, deeming it an unqualified abortion provider. The patient said she preferred Planned Parenthood for her medical care, but that she needed Medicaid. The patient and Planned Parenthood argued that a provision of federal law allowed them to sue the state for blocking their rights. In a 6-3 decision, the court ruled that they cannot sue the state of South Carolina to enforce that provision because the law does not allow private parties to sue state actors. Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan dissented from the opinion. Eric Adams officially announced that he is rerunning for New York City mayor, this time as an independent. He says there's still much to do.
Believe in us. I believe in our grit, our soul, our resiliency. And I believe that our best days are still ahead. Let's build a city where every kid can dream and every senior feels safe and every working person can thrive. Let's not go backwards. Let's move forward together. So 4 more years mean a lot. It gives me the time to finish the job. And this election is a real choice.
Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani is a top contender in the race. But billionaire Bill Ackman reportedly says he will financially support a candidate to go up against Mamdani. The Harvard Kennedy School is preparing contingency plans for international students who may be unable to enter the United States due to visa restrictions. On Monday, a federal judge indefinitely blocked President Trump's latest effort to prevent Harvard from bringing international students to campus. Despite the ruling, ongoing visa delays, administrative backlogs, and shifting rules to continue to disrupt plans for many students. Harvard's proposed alternatives include a blended program for new and returning students that would offer up to 3 in-person sessions in cities worldwide, or a partnership with the University of Toronto that would allow only returning students to complete their degrees in Canada. Harvard said it would launch the plans only if enough students showed interest. Border czar Tom Homan says he and his wife are living separately because of death threats against him. In an interview with the New York Post, Homan called the death threats against him and his family outrageous. The border czar says he sees his wife as much as he can. Homan did not go into the specifics of the threats. He did mention what he described as 1,000 protesters showing up at his house in upstate New York in April. That was in response to the arrest of a woman who was in the United States illegally. Earlier this month, protests and riots erupted in Los Angeles and several other cities. They followed raids by immigration and customs enforcement. During the interview, Homan called the protest a response to a criminal investigation dealing with money laundering, tax evasion, and customs fraud. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem met with Costa Rican President yesterday. After the meeting, the two countries signed a pair of agreements, one that welcomed Costa Rica into Customs and Border Protection's Global Entry Program. The other, a security agreement.
I recognize that the President has many responsibilities at hand. We've talked about his mission to have every single individual that comes into his country, every single product or good that comes into his country, to be scanned, to know what it is, what the product is, if it is something that is beneficial to the country, or if it is something that is tied to drug trafficking or drugs that needs to be stopped.
The Global Entry Program agreement will allow travelers a much more streamlined approach to coming back and forth between Costa Rica and the United States. Under the security agreement, Costa Rica will screen all goods entering the country through its airports and seaports. This was the second stop during Noem's tour of Central America. Noem then continued on to meet with Honduras president. Delegations from both countries addressed border security, migration, and the fight against drug trafficking. Congresswoman LaMonica McGivern pleads not guilty to charges she assaulted and impeded federal agents. She's accused of impeding authorities outside an immigration detention center in New Jersey last month. The Congresswoman represents a district in northern New Jersey. She was indicted on 3 federal counts after prosecutors said she struck 2 Homeland Security agents with her forearms during a scuffle last month. McGivern was conducting an oversight visit along with 2 other Democratic members of Congress. The detention center in Newark, New Jersey is run privately. She allegedly resisted agents who tried to arrest the city's mayor for trespassing at the facility. The Congresswoman denies the allegations and accuses the Trump administration of political intimidation. Coming up in a press briefing, Defense Secretary Hegseth described the strike on Iran's nuclear facilities as one of the most complex and secretive operations in U.S. military history. A former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander weighs in on this.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
A mission 15 years in the making. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, revealed details of the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed.
In order to dispel misinformation over the U.S. strikes against Iran, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, went point by point over the verifiable evidence that Pentagon has on the strikes on the Fordo nuclear facility.
The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space.
There was a 6th massive ordnance penetrator dropped on each of the 2 ventilation shafts at the Fordo nuclear facility for redundancy. The Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DETRA, began designing the munition some 15 years ago.
See, we're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press corps miss historic moments.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went into detail to clarify crucial elements that were omitted in the reporting of a leaked preliminary assessment of the strikes.
It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong.
The Department of Defense does not conduct battle damage assessment on its own operations. The intelligence community does. The CIA's assessment is that the strike set back Iran's nuclear program years. General Kane also went into detail of the defense of the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar.
We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history.
Senators are expected to receive a classified briefing this Thursday on the U.S. strikes against Iran. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the press briefing this morning with Hegseth is retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. He served in the U.S. Army as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander. He's also a geopolitical strategist and the author of the new book, Vincit Veritas. So good morning, Darren. Can you just comment to start off on the complexity of an operation like this, the level of planning, skill, coordination, all required to pull off the massive airstrikes?
Yeah, it's significant. And as you heard, 15 years in the making, but because you're looking at everything from confirming the targets even there to exactly the grid locations of each specific vent shaft and other things like that, that you can't just necessarily get from space or airborne platforms. You've got to get from other sources as well. And you have to know exactly how many bombs to drop to get to the depth that is necessary to complete the level of destructions that's needed. You'll analyze, the output of each of the weapons itself and see how effective those would be at the depths and what is expected to be underground. And you take it also back to how much fuel is required. What is the duration necessary for people to be in the air? It's extremely complex. But there's only one nation in the world that I know of right now who's capable of doing this, and that's us. And the airmen and everybody involved in this did it spectacularly, and I'm sure the world paid attention.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, would you rate this like 8, 9, or 10? And Hegseth describing the strike as one of the most complex and secretive as well in U.S. military history. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I would add it as modern military history. Of course, we've had a lot of very complex operations in through America's military history going back a number of years. So we can't discount that those were also difficult, things like Normandy landing and such. But when it comes to modern day era targeting, precision targeting, specifically the ability to destroy specific sites with limited number of casualties, only achieving the effect desired. Based on what we know right now, I would say this was a massive success. And I think the intelligence assessments that will take time to fully flesh out will support that assessment.
And you mentioned earlier, can you also talk about the capabilities that the U.S. has that no other nation possesses? How far ahead is the U.S.?
In some things, we're so far ahead, probably never going to get caught. And that's things like intercontinental strategic bombing missions using B-2 stealth bombers or other similar systems, I guess, even more high tech. But there are other areas where we're not necessarily there, and that's such as with the drone fight against, the comparison would be places like China, where the tech and the ability to mass produce things is there significantly. And so bottom line is, it's not, looking at the military in general, you're not able to say necessarily that we're ahead of every nation and everything decades. In this area, bombing with B-2 stealth bombers and massive ordnance penetrators, yeah, your decades or more ahead. But other areas, we're still behind or on par with other nations. So what I would say is that we've achieved a significant success using the capabilities that we have where nobody else can match us.
And you said earlier that it looks like the mission was a success, and foreign assessments as well, also in line with the U.S. On the Fordow strike, right? The Israeli Atomic Energy Commission saying that Fordow was rendered inoperable, IAEA as well. Rafael Grossi saying there's enormous damage, and Iran's own foreign ministry admitted nuclear facilities were badly damaged. Any comments on that?
Yeah, and I would say one of the military truisms is that the first report is always wrong, especially if it's really early after an event that is of this significance. You have to be patient and wait for the information to develop over time, because you're not looking for just a single source to tell you what the result was. You're looking for human intelligence. You might be looking for satellite intelligence, airborne, fixed wing intelligence of an Air Force variety or others. And in this case, obviously, other nations are involved in assessing it themselves. So by the time you build enough sources, if they're coming to generally the same conclusion, you know that you've got a higher confidence conclusion about what happened. Is it ever 100%? Not without people on the ground who you trust making those assessments. And that's an area that I think we've been hurting when it comes to human intelligence. If all these sources continue to say that they're at least degraded years up to being completely obliterated, I think you can reasonably conclude that that assessment is also fairly accurate.
So we were watching the press briefing this morning, and I brought a clip with me. Just have a listen to what Hegseth is saying.
We're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, two eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of firepower with that specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating effect.
So the full report hasn't come out yet, but how do you respond to Hegseth saying that anyone with eyes, ears, and a brain can recognize the strike's success?
There's a point to which that is 100% true, and that is simply by watching it and seeing what they can see on the ground from airborne pictures. Clearly, there is a massive amount of destruction. What you can't see is necessarily what's underground yet, because these kind of weapons, as they penetrate into the ground, most of their explosive force remains underground, and that's by design. So you can't see that from the surface. So if what you're seeing is destructive enough, what happens underground is magnified by many factors, and it's far more powerful. Thermobaric weapons, massive ordnance penetrators. On the surface, you have massive ordnance airburst bombs. These weapons, the only thing more powerful than these kinds of weapons is an actual nuclear yield weapon, which you, of course, do not want to ever have to use. And these things are more than powerful enough to completely destroy what they were aimed at. And I suspect you're going to find out that Iran has been rendered ineffective in the nuclear field for a very long time.
Okay, another part of this conversation is the enriched uranium. Do you have any comments on the uranium at the facility and the likelihood that it was destroyed?
Well, I don't have any specific intelligence on that, but that is a concern that must be accounted for, is whether or not the autocrats or whatever in Iran saw this coming and realized that there was no way they were going to deter it. So they took that uranium and the fissile material out of these facilities somewhere else in order to start over. That may be the case, and hopefully not. But if it is the case, regardless, you're still delayed years, because you can't just make something out of that material without having the systems and the facilities in place to do so. I don't think we're there now. Secretary of Defense, President may have some intelligence to be able to say with 100% certainty what has or has not happened there. But from my perspective, I would say at the very least, they've been rendered ineffective. The immediate threat is gone. And by the way, if it comes back, we can go back if necessary.
Okay, just to wrap up, what are your thoughts on what's next for the U.S., for Iran?
Hopefully, we can have an actual deal made where they'll truthfully and honestly stop trying to produce nuclear weapons, as their stated goal is to eradicate Israel. And that's just not good. It doesn't matter what country you're threatening. That can't happen. Worst case, Iran goes back to what it always was and tries to do the same thing again somewhere else. I would also say that in the best case scenario, that the people of Iran, the Persians, who have been under the thumb of these dictators for far too long, have an opportunity that they could seize to remove their own dictators and rebuild their own nation, bring back the government in exile that is out there ready to go. And maybe Iran, too, can enjoy some flavor of liberty again sooner than later, because their dictators have been shown to be ineffective and are losing their power.
All right, Darren, always great to talk to you, and thank you again for coming on.
Hey, thanks. Have a good day.
Next, President Trump is urging Israel to drop its corruption trial against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He called the charges a witch hunt and called Netanyahu a great hero. The charges date back to 2020, when Netanyahu was accused of accepting luxury gifts from Hollywood mogul Arnon Milchan. In a post on Truth Social, Trump defended Netanyahu as a, quote, warrior and credited him with helping thwart Iran's nuclear threat. Trump dismissed the case, which includes allegations of lavish gifts and a stuffed Bugs Bunny toy, as politically driven. Netanyahu's trial resumes Monday in Jerusalem. And Netanyahu said today he would continue to work with President Trump. In a post on X, Netanyahu said the goal is to, quote, defeat our common enemies, free our hostages, and quickly expand the circle of peace. Netanyahu posted the message with a picture of himself and Trump shaking hands. This happened shortly after Iran's supreme leader gave his first speech since Iran and Israel reached a ceasefire. In pre-recorded remarks on state television, Ayatollah Khamenei said Iran would not surrender despite President Trump's calls. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee today visited the hospital that was hit by an Iranian missile earlier this week. Huckabee talked about a possible deal to end the war in Gaza.
Only Hamas can really answer. When they decide that they are finished creating havoc, pain, and torture on innocent people, then it will end. And I think everyone in the world wants it to end, wanted it to end 620 days ago. And so let's hope and pray that this long nightmare is soon to be over. But the president has made clear, Hamas has no future there. They can't stay.
The Iranian missile damaged the medical center in Beersheba, Israel, a week ago. Hospital staff and several dozen people were likely injured after Israel and Iran volleyed strikes for several days. A fragile ceasefire now appears to be holding. Trump's involvement in securing a ceasefire has also given many hostage families hope that he might exert more pressure for a deal in Gaza. European leaders started arriving for a summit in Brussels today to discuss defense, trade in the Middle East, and Ukraine. When it comes to the U.S., EU leaders are trying to come up with a plan to counter President Trump's tariffs.
We need to move forward on trade. We need open trade. We are against tariffs. So I hope that the discussions with the U.S. will continue with an energetic mood in the coming days, because the July 9th deadline is coming fast.
The problem is that on behalf of the United States, we have a heavyweight deal maker. On our side, European Union, we have a light capacity and capability leaders to negotiate. So the problem is that the American negotiator is very strong. Our negotiators are rather weak. That's the problem.
Today's talks follow a NATO summit in The Hague. Yesterday, alliance members committed to boosting defense spending to 5% of gross domestic product. That decision follows President Trump's long-held view that NATO members need to spend more on defense. The European Commission negotiates trade agreements on behalf of the EU. The Commission will ask leaders of the bloc's 27 members meeting in Brussels how they want to respond to Trump's July 9th deadline for a deal. Possible peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey. Turkish President Erdogan said President Trump told him he would attend potential talks if Russian President Vladimir Putin also agrees to take part. Erdogan spoke with Trump at a NATO summit this week, the first talks since Trump returned to office. The Turkish leader says he aims to bring the Russian and Ukrainian leaders together, but according to Russia, there's been no progress yet toward setting a date for the next round of negotiations. That's according to Russian state media, which also reported the Kremlin is in favor of continued U.S. efforts to mediate peace talks. Coming up, a heat wave continues to scorch the Northeast. New Yorkers react to the sweltering temperatures. We have that story and more after the break.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing. What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results. And I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of meaningful beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing targeted treatment duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.
Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
If you haven't tried Meaningful Beauty yet, this new offer is something you don't want to miss.
This special offer is not available in any store, so don't wait. Scan the code, call the number below, or go to meaningfulbeauty.com right now.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
Strong weather coming down on parts of the country. Several tornado touchdowns were reported yesterday. Cell phone video out of Minnesota shows a small tornado crossing a rural road near Heartland yesterday. Debris swirled into the air as the driver edged closer. In Florida, powerful storms spun up a possible tornado in Largo, tearing through mobile homes and scattering debris. Fox 13 video shows a structure lifted and flipped while emergency crews rushed in to secure the area. The National Weather Service has not yet confirmed the tornado, and no injuries have been reported. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C. today, record humidity could bring the hottest feeling day of the heat wave. Temperatures in the 90s feeling like 105. Scattered storms may offer some relief before a cool down tomorrow, briefly breaking the heat before it bounces back for the weekend. After more than a year on the run, Ecuador's most wanted fugitive, the drug trafficker, Jose Adolfo Macias, is back in custody. Known as Fito, the leader of the Los Conaros gang has escaped from prison in early 2024. According to the U.S. Embassy in Ecuador, his escape triggered a wave of violence across the country, including widespread riots, bombings, and an on-air invasion of a television station by armed men during a live broadcast. Authorities say he was found hiding in a bunker that he had built beneath a home on the country's west coast. Ecuador's president says the country has requested his extradition to the U.S., where he faces drug and weapons charges. In Alaska, an unexpected visitor wandered into the Anchorage Fire Department's maintenance shop yesterday. It was a moose, but she didn't need a tune-up. One of the mechanics said he heard some grunting, looked and saw the animal. He said the moose didn't look upset, instead just looked for her babies. After about 20 seconds, the mama left when she realized her calves weren't there. Coming up, a top Venezuelan official is pleading guilty to charges of narco-terrorism and drug trafficking in the U.S. What charges he's now facing? We have that and more after the break.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Get new lower prices all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. They have all the latest looks at unbeatable prices. Like this big sofa with curved arms and 5 plush throw pillows. They dropped the price to just $5.99. That's an incredible value. And with their huge selection, you're sure to find the style that's just right for you. In stock with fast, free delivery. Look for price drop alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Inflation is still driving up home repair costs. How are millions of homeowners saving money on unexpected bills? With Choice Home Warranty.
Is a new refrigerator in your budget? How about a replacement AC unit? I'm Ty Pennington. For many families, these costs can be catastrophic. That's why I'm a Choice Home Warranty customer. They've saved millions of homeowners from unexpected repair bills with an affordable monthly plan that provides peace of mind and helps avoid surprise expenses. Call now to protect your home with Choice Home Warranty and get your first month free.
Choice Home Warranty offers plans that cover repair or replacement on up to 25 essential home systems and appliances. Protect your budget with a customizable Choice Home Warranty.
We've been a Choice Home Warranty customer for almost 9 years.
And we couldn't be more happy with their service that we get from Choice Home Warranty.
Unexpected home repairs can quickly eat into your savings. It wastes time and fills you with stress. Choice Home Warranty is the most trusted name in home warranty. Call now to lock in a low monthly rate.
Choice Home Warranty has a nationwide network of more than 25,000 trusted technicians. When I have a breakdown, they always have the right contractor to get me taken care of quickly. I just pay a low monthly fee and they pay for the covered repairs.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
It's time to protect your hard-earned money with an affordable plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call right now for the peace of mind you and your family deserve. Call Choice Home Warranty now.
Protect your home and your wallet with Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get a free quote, your first month free, and save $10 a month for the first year. Call 800-983-4585, 800-983-4585, or go to choicehome.com.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather,